Okay, I'm going to get started. So welcome to the Echo Security Awareness webinar, Closing the Gap. Really appreciate taking your time to be here today, and it's my intention that you get value out of this time together. And let me start by introducing myself. I'm Randy Heischiver. I'm with Echo Technology Solutions. I've been with them for about 4+ years. I've been in IT for 30+ years. I've been in all areas of technology and software development. I've been specializing in data integration, analytics, just IT support in general. I've been working at Echo in the capacity of a consulting partner recently. I've taken that position on. And prior to that, I've been doing client advisory and project management. So let me go ahead and show you my picture and start using the slides here. And a little bit about Echo. So Echo is a it's a full service IT consulting firm. We have been in business for approximately 2 decades. We provide the full suite of IT services for outsourcing, as you can see in the bottom part of the slide. We have, pride ourselves in creating long-term partnerships with our clients, and we, ground ourselves in our core values, really providing, what we found over the years as best practices in establishing those long-term relationships with providing transparency, creating a trusted partnership, providing a collaborative and effective processes with our clients. We also have a software development team that specializes in Salesforce integration. And let me go over the agenda for today. And during the presentation, I'm going to ask that we hold off most of our questions until the end when we have an opportunity to do Q&A. But if you do want to write something, go ahead and click on the chat button and go ahead and put that into the chat. And if it's appropriate during the slide, I will answer your question, or I'll determine to hold off to the end. So during the presentation, I'll be starting off with a discussion around social engineering. And really the human factor and how that plays into, as you noted from the title of the webinar, Closing the Gap, that is where a lot of the vulnerability still exists. With technology these days, we're not able to automate all the solutions with technology. So the final piece is exploiting the human factor, and that is what the thieves, the hackers, all the attempts that are being made that you've experienced either through your phishing campaigns that you've seen or in lots of other places where attempts are being made to get data about you and your organization, your privacy information, your critical data points, possibly your intellectual property. And we're in such a kind of a fast pace these days. We're moving really quickly. We're bombarded with tons of emails where information is flying around all the time. People are having discussions all over the place. And unless we're more aware of our surroundings and the vulnerabilities, we're going to be more susceptible to these potential breaches. So we'll talk a little bit about that during the social engineering section. I'll get into the techniques and tricks that are being used these days. A lot of this information that you'll start to hear about, you may be familiar with, but I ask that as you listen to me, consider where the weakest link may be. And it may not be you. It might not be your company, but it might be the people you're working for, or the people you work with that may not be as aware as you are. So as we go through this information, just keep in mind that it's important that the word is spread and that everybody becomes aware so that we close the gap of the weakest link in our operations. We'll get into passwords and start to look at how to create a complex, strong password, but also have it be easy for you to remember. I'll look at the signs and the symptoms of what would show you that possibly a security compromise has occurred on your systems. And then we'll spend time looking at the lessons learned of what to do and what not to do. And then on that, at that point, I'll move into the Q&A and give you opportunities to ask any questions, and then we'll be able to complete the webinar. So social engineering, the human factor. The thing that's really critical here is it's not just you typing on the keyboard a credential into your computer system. There's lots of other places that you're vulnerable, and the attacks are exploiting those opportunities. So I wanted to kind of expand where we're looking and where the vulnerabilities exist. And it could be that it's in an elevator when you're talking to somebody, in a cafe, someone overhearing you, at the water cooler. They will use all types of strategies to help understand what's going on with your organization. They will entice you with deals. They will make it sound like it's urgent. They will have you think that your passwords have expired or need to be changed because of a breach. They will create an illusion, and they will do what they can to get you to provide your information. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks, and it was directed by Steven Spielberg. And this was about 30 years ago. And the human factor and the exploits and tricking people into giving information has been around since the beginning of time. And in this movie, and in this particular true life, this person was able to deceive and create these scenarios where he was able to get onto airplanes through going through the checkpoints. He was able to get information at the banks. He was able to create enough of an impression that people's guards are down because it looks like it's accurate. And when you start to look at some of the tricks that we get into later on in the next slides or two, it's really about where are they tricking you? Where are they making it look really good? So I just want to continue to bring your awareness up, have you be more familiar with it, so you're not caught off guard and you're not surprised, or the people around you are starting to become more aware. So as we know these days, data is becoming king. Data is a resource that is becoming the most valuable resource that we have. So it's worth a lot. And when there are breaches, be it as little as they might look at the start, the impact could be huge to the branding, could be huge to the impression of your company, could be huge to your ability to sell to other clients or even your relationships with your existing clients. So it's critical that, as we've done with our security up to this point, lots of people have focused on firewalls, and they've focused on passwords and different ways of protecting the perimeters, but they keep forgetting, or they're not as paying attention as much to the small pieces that are the human factor, that are still our biggest vulnerabilities and are being exploited. So in the statistics, if you start to look at the statistics, email has become one of the riskiest places that the breaches are occurring. And Echo has done many campaigns, or what we call phishing campaigns, where we send emails to our clients that are asking for them to take action. And what we're attempting to do is get them to go off to a website where they enter their credentials. And you can see on the right here some of the statistics that we've actually seen that one in that particular campaign of 14 emails being opened entered their credentials. So it may be that, like I said in the beginning, you know all the information, you know how to be safe, but all it takes is that one person in the organization to start a problem for the organization by giving information away. Also keep in mind that campaigns by these hackers or by these phishers that are trying to get information from you are being patient about it. They know it's a long process. They're attempting to get information over time and put the puzzles together to be able to do the major breach. So it may be that you're just one piece of the puzzle. They're looking for information to help them move to the next step. And they might be looking for information about one of your clients or customers, and that's just yourself. So let's start getting into the types of techniques and tricks that are being used. You're all familiar. I would think you're mostly all familiar with phishing attempts, and most people these days were probably spelling it with PH, and it's not with an F, but it is phishing with a PH. And there's many different versions of them, and in the next slide I'll go over a lot of the different types of phishing, but it's really about how does somebody get you to take action to give them information. And they'll do it through impersonations. They will send information that says it's urgent, you need to act now. And they're really playing into your weaknesses, into that human factor that you're so busy, you're not maybe paying attention as well. And they're, creating a very slick email that looks good, that has all the right, feels and the right experience, and they're saying the right things. They might know about somebody that they might have profiled someone in the company, and they already know how that person sends emails. So it's looking really good. And they're hard to detect by technology these days, so you're still seeing them come through. And like I said, when they do when they do catch you, and you do put credentials in, or you do give them information that lets them get to the next level, it could be an exponential problem for the company. And just the breach in itself could impact your ability to, it'll impact your branding or your client, relationships or your reputation. So the different types of techniques, you're all familiar probably with email and spamming. That's been going on for years, and a lot of the spamming has gotten calmed down by the tools through the spam filters, and the ads are starting to be less, and you're not getting as many. There's deceptive phishing. That's really trying to trick you into doing something. It's like clicking maliciously. Clicking on an attachment. They really want you to either infect your machine, or they want you to go off to something, and they want to establish some sort of cookie on your computer, affect you with some sort of malware, and they're attempting to deceive you. Spear phishing, that is the, coming from somebody you think it is, like an impersonation. The CEO is sending an internal email, and it's not the CEO, and they're attacking you with a very direct messaging, and it looks like it's coming from a trusted sender. Whaling is a phishing attack on a CEO or a valued employee, C-level. Farming is where they're directing you to an internet site that looks like the site, and it looks like it exactly the way it typically looks. It has the same colors, the same login screen, and unless you examined it more thoroughly, you might not know, and you would just proceed as normal. Vishing and smishing. Vishing is when you're getting the voicemails, or you're getting the phishing over the phone calls, and it's the Social Security office calling you, letting you know that you're in trouble and you need to give them the Social Security number. Smishing is when you're getting SMS messaging, text messages. That's become very, that's on the increase these days, getting a lot of those these days. And be careful with that. Those usually start coming in more after you've signed up for something, especially if you signed up for it through the SMS. A lot of times you go off to websites and you're getting a download and you're clicking on the wrong link on the web page and you're entering information, that starts to start that off. Ransomware, some of you may be aware of this, is when a file gets locked. It gets through, it locks a file, and when you try to open your file with your Word document, Excel spreadsheet, it brings up a prompt that you need to pay somebody first before they release it and unlock it. And then Dropbox and Google Doc phishing, those are kind of common these days. They look, and they actually are coming from these Gmail accounts. You know, it's typical to get those from trusted partners or trusted folks where they're asking you to open up a file. They want you to go off to a doc. And again, you know, unless you know the signs and you really know how to review the email, you're going to possibly be, you know, attacked. And I have some examples here on the right, and the things that you just have to be kind of watching out for with these emails and you know, these attempts to have you click is, you know, is the link a valid link? So when you hover over the hyperlink text, look at the bottom and look at the link. And if you know that link is valid and you were expecting that email, then you're probably fine. But you need to look more carefully at the emails, who it's coming from, who's the from, and is it a legitimate email address? And they're always changing those addresses with sometimes zeros instead of O's and I's instead of ones, or ones instead of I's. So they're really trying to trick you into making you feel like you're on the right site or you're on the right link. So with passwords, it's interesting because we all want to be able to remember our passwords, and we have so many passwords these days. We're keeping them for so many different systems. It's become, you know, either we're keeping one simple password and we're using it across the board for all of our systems, or we are, you know, and we're keeping it as simple as possible. And I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but if you look on this chart, a very simple 7-character lowercase password with a brute force dictionary attacking tool, which a lot of the hackers will use, can break in less than a second. So you want to keep that in mind. And the more complex you make the password just by increasing the characters, changing it to lower and uppercase, and then adding more complexity to it with symbols and numbers, the amount of time to crack will increase substantially. So it's important that we both create a more complex password and that we also don't use the same password on every system. So here's a good trick for helping you with a more complex password that you can remember. And when you look at the left here, that WH012920 is not something you might necessarily remember. But if you look over to the right here, here's a really good example of how you can create a slick password that's complex. You come up with a really familiar quote that you know that you love. Love is a smoke made with a fume of sighs. And once you've gotten that quote, you can then turn all those first letters into the beginning of your password. Then you can turn your I's and your O's and your S's into ones, dollar signs, and zeros. And you end up with a complex password. And one of the things that you could also then do is you could add a prefix to that for your different cloud apps, and enhance it with this complexity. So you can now start having some different passwords for all your different systems. And how do we know that, and by the way, the hackers are betting that you're not doing this. They are hoping that you're not doing this. So they go forward with an attempt to, you know, hope that people are just not doing best practices. So there's a question about how about using whole sentences as a password? I think a whole sentence is fine. And again, I would change the characters to some symbols. So let's look at some of the signs and symptoms that your system has been compromised and that it's time to take some action and not let it persist. And again, we're in a fast-paced world. We're working quickly. Things are popping up on our screen. We don't want to deal with it, and we let it go. So we want to keep in mind that there are signs, and that it's early intervention is the best solution to be able to take care of something before it gets out of hand. So we've been running, a lot of you probably running antivirus softwares, and they're constantly detecting problems, and they're popping up messages on your screen. And the ones that you're familiar with from the software you use, that will be good to know. It's the ones that you're not familiar with that start popping up. Because of something that you clicked on a website, all of a sudden you've got this new thing that keeps popping up, and it makes it look like you need to take action, but it isn't your actual antivirus software. Again, they want to trick you into making it look professional and appropriate for you to take action. Your disk space is disappearing unexpectedly, so I don't know, a lot of you are checking your disk space. Again, that might be something done by your IT folks. It's good to keep abreast of what your total capacity is and what you're using. So it's a good way of knowing that there's something possibly going on. Just pop-ups in general appearing, and a lot of us are just closing them because we just think it's temporary. But if it just keeps happening, you definitely have to have that checked out. Files are appearing that weren't there before, so all of a sudden you're seeing some strange files on your desktop. They're maybe in your folders. The computer is performing slower. It's not performing well, good sign. Unusual messages, sounds, new icons on the desktop. These are all signs that something's going on. And again, I highly recommend you take action and get someone involved to help you check this out. The mouse is moving around on the screen. So I don't know if you've ever had somebody do remote support, but your mouse is going to be moving if you've asked them to come onto your screen and to work with you. But if it's there and you weren't expecting it, good sign that somebody's on your computer. If your computer's shutting down and rebooting, that is possibly a sign that something's going on. If you didn't expect it, doesn't necessarily mean that there's something bad. Sometimes that is part of an update. If you go onto your browser and you're not getting to the landing page or the start page you're used to going to, something has been changed, and that's a possible sign. And then ending up on a strange site. So if you clicked on a link, you were expecting to go somewhere, you clicked on a bookmark, and it's just not where you expected after conducting a search. Sometimes those search sites are looking like like the search engine, and they possibly are even using possibly the Google search as part of that. You just want to be careful. And then you'll get firewall alerts. Typically, that is another sign. So it's just kind of the holistic view here that if you have things happening, it's good to, better safe than sorry, have your machine checked out. And again, the hackers are expecting that you're not going to take action, that you're going to let it be, because they know that we're busy and that we put these things off and we always consider them benign. So I'm going to now kind of summarize everything we talked about for the last few minutes in what to not do and what to do. Let's start with the don'ts. You don't want to be clicking on email links. Just in general, it's not a good practice to click on email links. You want to be clear that that link is something you were expecting. It is the way it's supposed to be, and it's part of your best practice in that particular way your business operates. But in general, be careful. And you want to be looking at the appearance of how it looks at the bottom of your browser when you highlight over it, because you'll see that it's possibly not the link you expected, especially if they have those shortcuts in it and they have that bit.ly aspect. Somebody is creating a shortcut and trying to fake you out. It's not a good idea to open attachments, just in general. You know, attachments is just a bad practice. People are sending links now to their SharePoints, to their OneDrives, to their Dropboxes. Again, you're expecting that. That's part of your practice. But unless you were expecting the attachment and you knew it was coming, be careful. It's not a good idea to be downloading files off the internet. You know, unless you are clear about what you're doing and you know it's a trusted site and it's part of some, you know, process you're doing, be careful. And you don't want to be clicking on unsolicited pop-ups. Pop-ups are always coming up on your screen. It's just another way of getting you to take action, an urgent message. You got to take this step now or else you'll be vulnerable to a breach. Be careful. You do not want to be entering credentials into unknown websites. And also, you do not want to be putting credentials into a website that you went to from an email link. It's best to go to that site directly and go to your bookmark or type in the URL that you know. If you are on a suspicious website, do not stay on it. Get off it. Close your browser. If it, you know, worst case, just close your browser. Do not get personal information on an inbound phone call. I mean, I don't know how many times I have to tell people this, and it seems to be common sense, but don't give your social security number out. Don't give any information if they're calling you. It's not necessary. And Social Security office and banks do not ask you for that information when they call you. Do not share personal or business information. Don't tell people about your infrastructure. Don't tell people where your data center is located. Don't tell them how to get access to the building where the security system is located. It's all, and it sometimes is being asked in very interesting ways. People are, you know, asking other questions like, you know, where are you from? You know, do you do backups? What's the last time, you know, you upgraded your systems? It's, you know, it could be friendly talk, but again, you know, just not a good practice. And do not share passwords. You know, people are sharing their passwords all the time, and it's not a good practice. Don't put it on Post-its under your keyboard. Don't put it on whiteboards. Don't share it. And if you have to share it for whatever reason, consider it a temporary act and change your password when you're done. And do not wire money from requests over emails. You want to have a very secured practice, a secured encrypted practice with balances and checks to ensure that your money needs to be wired based on that process. We have examples of clients that have transferred money, and it's just unfortunate, and it happens because they look so good and they come from the appropriate people, but at the end of the day, it was faked out. So these are the don'ts. You want to ask questions, you want to verify, and you want to protect yourself, and you want to make sure that you're, you know, not doing things that will cause you, you know, possible breaches. And again, back to what I said in the beginning, you might know all this, you might do all this. This might be exactly what you already know. But does everybody in your organization do this? Or not do this? And does everybody else know? So keep in mind, the weakest link is what is going to cause the biggest problems for your company, for your partnerships, for your friends and family. And lessons learned, what to do. So again, be aware, be cautious, and be proactive. Be suspicious. You know, just don't take it, you know, for what it's worth. You know, look, take a double take. Make sure it's accurate the way you expected it. Pay attention to your surroundings when you're having conversations about your next, you know, invention, your next intellectual property, your IPO, your, you know, your move, your, you know, your access points, your Wi-Fi, you know, whatever it is, pay attention. People are sometimes following you. They're sitting next to you. They want to find out, and they want to get the pieces of the big puzzle, and they will use whatever they can to get there, and they will profile over time. Change your passwords. You know, especially if you're in a compliance regulatory guidelines, you know, will say, you know, you need to change your passwords. It's a good idea to change your passwords at least every 180 days, and then even 90 days would be better. Again, it's inconvenient. It's hard to remember, but you've got to use those tools that I'm giving you. Change your passwords, and don't share them. Back up your data. Make sure your data is being backed up. Don't question it. I mean, don't second guess it or think it's being done. Double check, verify that you've got your data being backed up. You've got your retentions as often as you need them. You have, you know, backup fire drills. Can you restore that data? Do you have the data for all your systems, your local drives if people are saving stuff there, your cloud drives? You know, are you able to recover for a period of time beyond what may be included with those services? If you get ransomware and you're locked out of your files, one of the solutions is going back to a restore from an earlier time before you were locked out. And that has saved a lot of our clients in the past, and it's happened multiple times. Implement a cyber incident process. Everybody needs to know what to do when they're breached or been attacked or have some sort of symptoms. And they need to know what actions to take, where to go, what to report, who to inform, when to let the FBI know, when to get a lawyer involved. All that should be documented and in a process in play that your company has that is available and people know how to do it. And last but not least, security awareness. Security awareness is important, as you can tell from this conversation, and we get complacent, we forget, we get lazy, we don't pay attention because we're running quick. We're doing our job, and 6 months down the road, it just becomes all the same. It disappears, and we don't see it anymore. So refreshers are important. New employees coming into the company is important to get them trained and to do it on a regular basis. And doing a phishing campaign and testing your company to see where the weakest links are and to actually validate that you guys are aware. Everybody knows what's going on. So I have a good question. How do you feel about password managers? So as you can tell from this conversation, I've been agnostic to tools, but there are tools that will help continue to close the gap. You know, there are password management tools. There are single sign-on tools. There are phishing and URLs and impersonation protection tools. I highly recommend that you identify those for your organization, and Echo can help you with finding the best breed to help close the gap. Again, after all that, you're maybe still at 90% protection. You still don't close that gap of the human factor. And that was the point of this conversation is, yeah, putting all the tools in all day long will be great. And the password and the single sign-on things will definitely help you be able to not worry about using simple passwords anymore, because they start to put in play a very secured process. They allow for you to put in multi-factor authentication. They help you manage the administration centralized so that you don't have to give passwords out anymore, and you can have a better secured shared process for those accounts that are shared, etc. There are some good password management tools like LastPass and etc. So as far as any recommendations, and we can move into the Q&A at this point, any recommendations for employee security awareness trainings? We, Echo, have trainings that we offer, like I'm doing right now. There are tools that are out there, like WebRoot offers a security awareness training as part of their endpoint protection. Again, I don't need to be like, you know, on a particular tool in general, but Echo has been using a lot of tools that have solved a lot of the problems that will help with the awareness training, the single sign-on, the phishing and impersonation, and passwords. And we can also help with assessments and help with audits, especially with the regulatory requirements when you have audits. So let's see, if employees are using Password Manager, how do you best make sure they don't retain logins when they leave the company? So that is going to be, that is a really good question. Unless you have a centralized service, like a single sign-on service, where you're able to administer the login to that service, and you're signing up for user-based products, you're going to have a hard time getting that information back, even if you have an employee agreement that you own the data. So be cautious and have that be part of your decision-making process of what tool you're going to use. We like Okta for the single sign-on. So how often should companies hold security trainings? I recommend at least an annual training and a training for new employees when they sign on, when they're onboarded. You can also, another design that has been recently implemented by some of the security firms is a ongoing campaign that continually sends random phishing attacks to your employee to keep them fresh on their toes. And then the management would get a metrics on that, so you could tell how they're doing, and that helps with an ongoing training. Do we have any other questions? Any recommendations of security software to use to check if a computer has been compromised, or activate monitoring software to use? Well, I definitely recommend that you have an endpoint protection software running. We install Webroot on our clients' workstations, which is pretty good at catching most of the issues that are coming through both the browser and through the email. We also recommend Mimecast or some sort of security gateway for email that is checked before it makes it to your Exchange servers, and it will help with URL protection so that you're not getting bad URLs. It helps with impersonation protection, and it helps with attachment detonation, so that if there's a malicious attachment, it's already been tested in a sandbox before it gets to you. So again, all those tools are great, and they do help you close the gap. But again, it doesn't fully close the gap because there is always that human factor that will be exploited. So as far as time goes, we got 4 more minutes. I will give you guys another minute or two, and I really want to thank you for taking the time today and attending this. I hope it was worthwhile, and I definitely urge you to make sure the rest of your community is safe, that you're keeping your data safe, and that that this will remind you that it's important to be part of the solution. And I appreciate it that you gave me the opportunity to share this with you. So thank you very much, and have a great day.